Chapter 28. The last night before I leave for Japan, I'm wide awake on the bunk. Somewhere in the middle of the darkness, it finally sinks in. I'm volunteered for the Special Attacks Unit, the Kamikaze. That's the new assignment, mine and 2 other soldiers. They'd chosen 3 of us, dismissed a 4th with no explanation. Although the briefing of the CO droning on and on about the duty and honor and courage, I hardly heard them. There was only one thought in my head. I'm going to fly an airplane. That was the only thing I thought about until now. Now the whole truth looms over me. I'm going to fly an airplane and crash it into an American ship. It grabs me by the shoulders and sits me straight up in bed. That's how strong it is. Impossible. How can anyone do something like that? I joined the Army to save Uncle, not for any other reason, not to kill Americans, and certainly not to help the Japanese. But that's what the Imperial forces do, the Special Attack Unit most of all. It's not just the damage they do to American ships. It's the power they have to boost the whole army. They make everyone, even lowly guards like Spadeface, a good joke about that. And they have a good laugh, except that I'm doing it too. In the afternoons, we have practical training, flying at last. But not in planes, in gliders. We watch the other squads. The glider's attached to the car with long cable. The car tows the glider until it gets up enough speed. Then the pilot releases the cable. When our instructors demonstrate, the glider banks in a gentle curve and then rises in a big spiral. It's beautiful to watch. But when it's the new recruits piloting, a whole different story. The glider crawls along the ground, wobbling back and forth, sometimes lifting a meter or 2 in the air. Sunny has a swing in a tree back home. She gets higher than they do in the gliders. Our instructors say that's when the whole squad can fly gliders properly. We'll move on to planes. And if we're good at it, we can be flying planes next month. My first time in the glider, the instructor sits behind me. First, he flies it, telling me the whole time what he's doing. The control is a stick that raises or lowers the nose. It directs the wings, too. I listen hard so I can really look to see how high we are. I know from watching the others that he'll take it up about 5 meters. Then he'll bring it back down again for me to try. My turn. The car gains speed. The instructor yells, "Now," and I push the button to release the cable. The glider slithers along on its belly like a snake. Push the stick, pull it precisely at just the right moment, and we're off the ground. The glider stays in the air for a few seconds. It feels like a few years. Magic, that's the only word for it. Then it bumps down again, tipping a little on the landing, so the instructor has to help me straighten it. I wish he hadn't had to help me, but I'm still proud of myself. Some of the other guys can't even get the glider up at all. It rolls along and careens in crazy-ass patterns when they panic and start pushing the stick every which way. I can't wait to fly a real plane. There are only 2 planes in the whole camp and more than 200 men, so even when we do start to fly, we'll have to take turns. Still, it's a thrill to see them for the first time. They're kept in the forest at the edge of camp, hidden underneath pine boughs in case of an enemy air raid. The planes used to be kept in hangars, but all the huge buildings are easy to spot from the air, so all the training planes were moved to the woods. It's one of the duties of new recruits to jog out to the woods and uncover the planes. The feel and smell of pine again. They're so beautiful, so slim. The cockpit is the widest part, just wide enough to hold a man or 2 men, one sitting behind the other. And then the plane tapers down to the tail. The propeller blades are enormous, 3 of them, each as tall as me. What power! And the wings are broad and flat, like 2 strong arms. We uncover the planes at lunch, cover them up again at the end of the day. That's the closest we get to them for weeks. I can see why it's organized like that. Being so close to the planes every day, but not being able to fly them, makes us want to do even better at our training, so we're able to fly soon. Other squad makes progress, 30 of us, 3 Koreans, the rest Japanese. Our instructors are very pleased. They say that we're fast learners, considering that we don't get many chances to fly the gliders. We're flying more often than they know. The controls for the rudders are foot pedals. After lights out, we sit on our beds, imagining sticks in front of us, imagining pedals on the floor, our hands and feet moving, every one of us flying a glider in our minds. The day finally arrives, our first day in planes. Revel is at 4:30. The morning lesson on Emperor's sayings is agony. Then, after lunch, we have to endure another speech. And when CO starts talking, I feel like I'll die from impatience. But this speech is different from the others. For the first time ever, the CO is saying something different about the war. Losing. Japan is losing. He doesn't use that word, but for nearly an hour he talks about recent battles, the numbers of casualty, men's, planes, equipment, the never-ending waves of U.S. planes, the strength of the American naval fleet, how the Japanese have been forced to fall back and back and back, how they've lost nearly all the territory they've conquered earlier in the war, how the battle in the air is Japan's last hope. How sacred homeland now lies under the direct threat of American bombardment, he said. The responsibility for any chance of an honorable end to this war rests on our pilots, on you, should you complete your training successfully. You must all apply yourselves with utmost diligence and not waste a single moment of your instruction, in the name of the Emperor. He dismisses us with a fervent salute. The squad's quiet after hearing all that, but then our instructors yell for us to march, double time to the airstrip, where the planes are waiting for us, uncovered by new recruits. We aren't new anymore. We're ready to fly. I talked to myself all the way out to the airstrip. You wanted so badly to fly. This is bound to be a letdown. It'll be different somehow. You're not nearly as good as you've imagined. Expect that you won't be disappointed. Me in the front seat now with the instructor behind. We have radio headsets. They're wonderful. It's like his voice inside my head. Except I keep forgetting to press the button down when I want to talk. It's embarrassing. I answer him, and he repeats the question. Then I realize I haven't pressed the button. Headset. Harness. I feel the rudder pedals with my feet, bigger and heavier than the ones in the glider. The plane starts to roll, and I hear the instructor's voice the whole time. I try to listen hard, throttle forward, accelerate. I really am listening, but only with part of my brain. The rest of it is looking out in the cockpit windshield, at the ground, sliding faster and faster beneath us. And then I can feel it. I can tell the exact moment that the wheels are leaving the ground and we're in the air. The noise is incredible. At first, I can hardly hear myself think, but then we're climbing fast, noise and the power that go with it. In no time, we're high above the airfield. The instructor banks the pilot. His voice is in my head, something about going easy on the control. I can't listen anymore. I have to look down at the ground. Everything's so tiny. Trees are like little sprouts, the buildings like toys. The seat is beneath me, I know that. And then underneath that, the plane and the wheels. But all I feel underneath me is air. I was wrong, it's better than I imagined. I want to shout as loud as I can, but of course that wouldn't be very soldierly. I might even get in trouble. So I shout silently, one enormous yell of joy. More flying lessons. I pilot the plane several times with the instructor in the second seat, 2 sets of controls in case of trouble. If you go out 3 times in a row without him having to touch his controls, you get to go solo. I'm one of the first. Flying feels so natural, timing, controls, speed. I'm like playing with my top when I was little or riding my bike. I feel like I was born to do this. We have so many things to learn, how to take off with as little runway as possible, how to control the plane with no matter what the weather, how to land properly. Very important, as even a small mistake on landing can damage the plane. After we ride solo for a while, the instructor rides in the plane again. Now he demonstrates all kinds of maneuvers and teaches us to fly them. Then he gives us a series of tests. He puts the plane in a dive and we have to climb out of it. Or he makes the plane spin, forcing us to regain control. With the plane upside down, he cuts the power. We have to get the power back on to get the plane side up again. Still more to learn. Another plane in the air, pretending to be the enemy, so we can practice evasive maneuvers. Sometimes scary, always exciting. The time comes for us to practice our actual mission tactics. There's no way to do this, really. 2 different tactics. The dive approach, target the radio tower. We go into a dive from high above, but of course we have to pull up and out well above the target. There's also the wave hopping approach. For this, we fly in low. If we're just above the waves but beneath enemy fire, in a straight line toward the target ship. A marked tree on the edge of a field. Again, we pull out and up before we hit the tree. The first few times we try the dive approach, we pull out too soon, hundreds of meters from the tower. It looks so foolish watching the others from the ground, but when you're the pilot, it feels like the tower's right up to your nose. Our instructors are disgusted with us. They make us run around the airfield, stifling our heavy canvas jumpsuits, until most of us have collapsed, like little ants crawling around the perimeter of the field. So we finally get to where we're pulling out only 50 meters or so from the tower. They give us our next assignment. Do the dive with our eyes closed. This is to practice the timing to prove that we know the planes and our flying abilities so well that we can tell where we are without looking. The first time I opened my eyes at least a half dozen times. Impossible what they're asking us to do. I feel like I'm going to crash right into the tower. But it's funny how interested I feel. I like it, the challenge of it. I want to prove I can do it, not to them, to myself. They had us count during our early dives, so we know about how long it will take us to have to pull out. 10 seconds from 2,000 meters. The second try, with my eyes closed, I start counting. How far could I get without looking? 1, 2, 3. I don't peek. I get to 5. I try to picture the tower getting bigger and bigger. 4, 5. Don't peek. Get to 7. I can feel the sweat pouring down my face, and I don't look. I yell at myself inside my head, don't look, and I squeeze my eyes shut tighter. Those last few seconds are the longest of my whole life. At 10, I open my eyes, blink to clear them. The tower, right where I thought it would be. I pull out and go soaring, and that day I don't have to run. We're about one morning in June. The sergeant shows up in full dress uniforms. We've only worn them twice, on our first day here, and then again we get to fly the planes for the first time. We line up, and I take a quick glance around. In our uniforms, we're a pretty smart-looking bunch. The CO seems to think so, too. He praises us for our success in training. Then he assigns us our mission date, 4 days. If the weather's clear, we leave in 4 days. For the Operation Kikusui, off Japan. Your assignments are posted in the barrack, he says. Then he turns to the sergeant, who explains how the assignments work. The best students have been assigned as fighters or bombers. The single men, at last, mechanics. None of us moves, and we all remain standing at attention. But I can feel the shock going through my body, and I'm sure the other trainees are feeling the same. Single men? Mechanics? That means some of us won't be flying. What if I'm assigned mechanic? A few short weeks ago, I thought I wouldn't mind having that job. But those mechanics, they trained as pilots too. Now they work on planes all the time, and they never have a chance to fly one. I'd hate that. And then I thought, hits me so hard, I feel like my stomach lurch. My plan. For my plan to work, I have to be a pilot. If I get the wrong assignment, if I can't fly, we're dismissed. And there's a mad rush to the barracks. Everyone crowds around the assignment sheet posted on the wall. I get bumped, jostled. I have to wait forever for my turn. And I'm silently praying, please, please. Running my name down the list, the K names. Kei Nanamu. Noboru, bomber. None of us is truly ready to fly a mission, but the military command is desperate. No squad is getting fully trained. We've been luckier than some. We've had target practice for more than a month now. We don't get bream for our last meal. They must not have any. We get rice and beans, but instead of bream, some kind of meat. It's been a long time since I've had any meat. This stuff is tough and full of gristle. I don't even want to know what it is. Back to the barracks one last time, each of us given a little box for our things. We trim our nails and put the trimmings in a little envelope, a lock of hair too. Both Koreans and Japanese do this. Something about leaving behind whatever you can that your parents have given you. Then we write home. I don't know what to say at first, but once I start writing, it gets easier. When I reach the end, I hesitate for a moment. They've promised us that these won't be censored, that no one but the families will read them. I don't know if I believe them or not, but it will be my last letter ever, so I sign it with my real name. The excitement's been washed away by a huge wave of fear, so strong that I feel the blood drain from my face. But it's hard to imagine that the day after tomorrow I won't be here on this earth. It's probably better that way. I put the letter on top of the box. Then I lie around in my bunk for the rest of the night, and I don't think any of us sleep. I know I don't anyways. I think about home, not about Amoni. It makes me too sad, or about Abjui either. It's uncomfortable, somehow thinking about him. Mostly I think about Sunhee and Uncle. Sunhee, she's a nice kid, even with all those questions. One good thing about never getting back home, I joke to myself, is I won't have to answer a million questions. And Uncle. Best of all, thinking about Uncle makes me feel less sad to know that he'd be proud of me, if he knew. He won't know, of course. There's no way to ever tell him. But I feel like he'll know somehow. Not know as a fact, but feel it in his heart. And I think the best of me anyways. Then I think about other things, girls. I've never had a girlfriend. He Wong, Junction's older sister. I wish I could have got to know her better. Maybe we could have talked about things, about her family being a Chinolpa, about me joining the army, how life gets so complicated sometimes. Now the simplest things seem the best. Marriage, a family of my own, children. I never thought about being a father. It seemed too far in the future. But now it feels like it would have just been around the corner for me if it weren't for tomorrow. I'm not excited anymore or afraid, just sad. A deep, wide feeling of sadness. Reveal. For the first time since I started training, every single one of us is out of bed before wake-up call. Before dressing, we all go to the latrines. It's too hard to go after you've had your flying uniform on. It's a jumpsuit, all one piece. One addition to the uniform are ceremonial swords. After a final salute to the sergeant, we put our swords back in our beds with the little boxes. As we file out of the barracks, a soldier's already collecting them to send to our families. Out onto the tarmac. Tables set up there with cups of sake lined up. Time for our 3 toasts. I've worked out this already. Our first toast is to the Emperor's Shrine. The shrine on the base isn't far from the airfield itself. And beyond that, the woods where the training planes are hidden. I raise my cup like everyone else, but in my mind I toast the planes, not the shrine. The second toast is to the Emperor himself. I picture Uncle instead. And the last toast towards our hometowns. For me, west and a little south. I can be honest about that one. One last speech from our commanding officer. Then we gather into squads to receive our orders. Listen carefully. Our flight lieutenant, Watanabe, he's Japanese, of course, but a pretty good guy all the same. Last known location of the enemy ships was 144 degrees, 20 longitude east, 39 latitude north. As you know, we'll be flying in 3 formations. Keep your speed between 75 and 90 kilometers per hour, altitude 1,500 meters. All planes use the dive tactic. Do not under any circumstances break formation. Understood? Hi, we all shout together and salute him. Just then a soldier comes running onto the tarmac, waving a piece of paper. Sir, he shouts, wait, an important message from military command. I turned at the sound of his voice. I've got one hand on the struts, ready to climb into the cockpit. A message? It's not a normal part of routine as far as I know. Should we fall back into squads? The CO reads the message. I'm pretty far away, so I can't tell from his expression if it's good news or bad. A change of enemy position, maybe? New information about the fighters? He calls us back into squad formation. I hustle into line and can see everyone's faces. They don't know what's going on either. When we're settled, the CO waves the paper, a personal message from His Divine Majesty, wishing you all the strength and guidance of heaven on your mission. I keep my face steady, but inside I'm rolling my eyes. Just what I need, personal encouragement from the Emperor. We're dismissed again. I climb onto my plane. It's not really mine, but that's how I think of it, and it will be mine now, all the way to the end. Strapped in, headset on, instruments checked, engine running, want to Nabi's voice, and another sound, a strange thumping. I listen hard for a moment. Is something wrong with my plane? No, it's my heart thudding hard. Stupid. I check everything again. Just have to do something while I wait to take off. Watanabe leads the way. I'm third in line. I love taking off. The wheels grumbling on the tarmac, grumble, 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 and then that sound gone. Only the engine noise left. We circle the base once and waggle our wings, and I look out over the window, the whole base saluting us, saying goodbye.